Hey, good morning from an optimistic Kansas City, and welcome to SportsBeat Live, the weekly show where we talk Royals with the Kansas City Star reporters and columnists who know them best, and with you. Please send us your questions and comments about the Royals. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Let's welcome in Lynn Worthy, who will put surprise Arizona in his rearview mirror later today. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning.
Vahe Gregorian probably can't put his four-legged friends away because they pretty much run the house. Hey, Vahe, how you doing? Okay, and we'll go to Sam Mellinger, who appears to have put away his old contraption for an upgraded model. Sam, you've never looked more clear.
And I'm not going to big league you like Vahe just did.
He did. He
Good to see
did.
you.
I just, yeah. I guess Vahe needs to unmute or
Technology.
Yep. So Sam gets a new contraption and has never looked better. And Vahe, meanwhile, moving to another room in the house. Hey, that's all right. We'll get Vahe back here in just a second. Hey, great to see you guys. And we got a lot to talk about with opening day on Thursday. But before we get started, got to take a moment and welcome our new sponsor, the University of Kansas Health System. Great to have them on board. And as you notice, we're coming to you on Tuesday, and that's going to be our weekly home. So pencil us in for Tuesdays, 10 a.m. for Royal Sports Beat Live going forward. Look, that means it's only been 5 days since our last chat, but so much has happened in those 5 days, and we're going to get to it in just a moment. Before we do, I want to hear your projections. How many victories do the Royals get this year? Does the improvement continue for this organization? We're going to give you ours at the end of the show, but let us know what you think as we progress through the show. Vahe, are you here?
Can you see me? Can you feel me? Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry. We've got a house full of technical glitches, starting with me in the middle.
You sound good. Glad to have you. And we got a lot to talk about here with the Royals. The first thing right off the bat, been a significant roster development here. Kyle Isbell, 2018 third-round pick out of UNLV, and Lynn, it looks like we have got a newcomer to the roster, someone we might not have expected when spring training began. Tell us about Kyle Isbell, and then I'm going to ask Sam and Vahe what the significance of this is beyond just getting a hot bat in the lineup.
Yeah, Kyle Isbell looks like they still haven't made the roster move officially at this point, but looks like he could be your everyday right fielder. Actually, he's only 24 years old. Hasn't played above Wilmington High A, but last year was one of the guys who was in big league camp, then was in the summer camp, was at the alternate site. Has looked really good in spring training this year. And the way it sort of worked out, I mean, going into camp, you didn't really necessarily see that one. I mean, especially with everybody concentrating on Bobby Witt Jr. But Mike Matheny has talked about the two of them in the same breath since, camp started. And every time you talk about how impressive Bobby Witt Jr. was, he also mentioned Kyle Isbell as being right there as a guy who's knocking on the door. And I think we all sort of saw the writing coming with Nicky Lopez probably, not being your everyday second baseman. And then they made that official with him optioned to the minors. And that puts Whit Merrifield back at second base, which was the position that he's played the most. And he basically moved off of that position for Nicky. And that leaves that opening in right field. And looks like Kyle Isbell's the guy who's going to grab that.
Yeah, well, mentioned, Mike Matheny mentioning Bobby Witt and Kyle Isbell in the same breath. I know on this show we weren't doing that. But we did sneak Kyle Isbell in under the wire last week because he was just not cooling off in spring. What did he end up hitting, Lynn? Was it 340 or something? And
it was 333, I believe, in the 420 OBP for spring training. And he's a guy who I think his first year in the minors hit like 326. And then he had a year where his numbers were really bad, but he had multiple injuries that year. So his last full year in the minors at Wilmington, his numbers, I forget what it was. It was his slash line was not good, but he played through a hamstring injury, then he had the hamate bone. And then when he was healthy in the fall league, he looked really good again. Everybody's like, okay, that's the player that they thought he was.
All right. So the one thing that strikes me about this, Sam and Vahe, is this isn't a panic move by the Royals. It is a move based on I don't know, dare I say, position of strength, to send down a guy who started for them last year in Nicky Lopez and bring up a prospect who who shows promise. And what's the comment here on the Royals?
Well, one thing that just stands out to me, and gosh, Sam, and you too, Blair, you have a longer history with the Royals on this, far longer than I do. But the idea that you can lose a job in spring training seems to stand out to me. Like maybe it's more common than I realized, but I sort of thought this was absolutely Nicky Lopez's job to lose, and he lost it. So I think that's a little bit of a statement in itself, and not in some ways reassuring, but in some ways I'm sure a little complicated for the Royals. What's the message you're sending about a guy who's been your guy for only a year and a half or so, and are they giving up on him? I don't think we think they're giving up on him, but I think they have to massage the message, so to speak. And but it also does say performance matters in spring training. I guess I would have hazarded the guess that the second base job coming open would have gone to a different guy. But I think we can understand why that's being held off on, as Debbie Downer, Lynn Worthy pointed out last week. So anyway, that's just my not so quick take.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on with it. I mean, Kyle Isbell is a guy that they've really liked from the jump, even through those struggles that Lynn mentioned. And there's a couple interesting things about this. Like it's a win move. You know what I mean? Like the Royals of 2019 or 2018, maybe they live with, and they did live with Nicky Lopez and just give him 500 plate appearances and just, let him, he adjusted his swing a little bit now. Maybe he's scuffling through that. But they're saying no, like scholarship time is over and we need production. And it also is encouraging, should be encouraging for Royals fans that they've got a guy that they can bring up, and the positional versatility between not just Witt, most obviously, but also Hunter Dozier allows them to move these pieces around and still field a competent, perhaps even above average big league defense. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting, and maybe this is just like super nerdy, but so Lynn mentioned the struggles at Wilmington, and that's the last, minor league action that he's had, right? But I think the Royals have looked at Isbell, they've looked at Sully Mateus, Bobby Witt Jr., and perhaps some others, and have thought, you know what, like that alternate site is more useful. Like there was more development going on in that alternate site, despite all the weirdness and it's not real games and all that. But I think those, just sort of collectively that this many guys took what appears to be like significant jumps. It kind of has the Royals trusting what they're seeing, like Bill Fisher, who's like one of my favorites, like this old time scout. He's a grumpiest guy and so cool. But, he always said, like, believe what you see and not what you think. And I think there's some of that going on here. Believe what you see in the spring. On the bad side, Nicky Lopez, right? But then on the good side, maybe Kyle Isbell really is ready. I mean, 24 is young, but it's not 18. And so maybe it's time for him to hit. It's just a lot of interesting sort of stuff going on right below the surface. It's a cool time to be following the Royals right now.
Sam, just to chime in real quick, I think another scout, Marvin Gaye, used to say, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. I think that was how it went.
He's got a great track record too. Like I'm not going to argue with that guy.
All right.
So,
Does the defense get a little weaker? They lose a Gold Glove finalist at second base, assuming Witt's going to step in and play second. Certainly a major league second baseman, Whit Merrifield. But Nicky Lopez had a terrific glove. But on the other side, on the flip side, I guess the lineup gets deeper, does it not? You take Nicky Lopez out of, he would be in the 9-hole, right? Or Michael Taylor. I don't know which one's going to be in the 9-hole, but well, it'll be Michael A. Taylor now, I suppose, right, Lynn?
yeah, if we go by what we saw the last couple of days, and in the last couple of days, it looked like sort of an opening day type lineup that they ran out there the last couple of Cactus League games. You had Michael Tayller batting ninth, and you had Isbell eighth, and actually Hunter Dozier was seventh. So that gives you an idea just how deep that lineup was. And just sort of another sort of ancillary thing with the lineup is I had asked Matheny about, when Sal's going to get his days off, and he doesn't come into play really early in the season, but you want Salvi's bat still there. And I think even maybe it was last week on the show that, somebody talked about is Salvi going to be DHing when he's not playing. It's like, well, you got Jorge Soler. Well, you're not going to pull, Witt out of the lineup to put Soler in there. And maybe you would have pulled Nicky out and put Witt at second anyway. But now you can put Salvi at DH. You can put Soler in the outfield for a game, once a week instead of Isbell, and you're keeping a major bat in there, two major bats in there with Salvi at DH, Jorge in the outfield, and Witt just stays at second base, and you still have a deep lineup. Salvi gets his day off, Cam's behind the plate, and then you still have that big middle of the lineup, and then Isbell, who's a rookie, still getting his feet wet, maybe gets the day off once a week in that type of situation. But you don't really take bats out of the middle of that lineup. So just a sort of another aspect of that. But yeah, with Nicky out of the lineup, most likely Michael A. Taylor drops down. It looks like they're leaning towards, if we're reading into these last couple lineups, leaning towards Mondesi maybe batting third. So the lineup is looking interesting.
Mondi batting third. I think that's another topic we can get into here. I don't know what to say about Mondesi, except when he's good, he's fantastic, and when he's not good, he's awful at the plate. Right, his glove is always there, but there hasn't been much in between with Alberto Mondesi. What's the point of batting him third, Sam? What are the Royals hoping for with Mondesi in the 3-hole?
They've always been really aggressive with him. From the literal beginning, when they fought off the Yankees and some other clubs to sign him, just to get him to sign their contract. And then they pushed him through the minor leagues, despite, he wasn't overperforming those leagues offensively. Makes his debut in the World Series, wins the job at second base in a season where he probably shouldn't have. Probably should have been Whit Merrifield. Struggled. But they've always been aggressive with him. And I think that they probably look at it like he crushed. I mean, there's an argument for him that he was the best player in baseball in the month of September. Now, the month of September can lie, all those things, but that still happened on a Major League Baseball field. And then in the spring, he's been crushing. And he's been doing it against, it's spring training and all that stuff, but they've been putting him against the best pitching. Right. I mean, he's not crushing against, low A guys. So I think they probably feel like he did this in September. He's doing it now in spring. This is where he should be. I disagree with them on this, with the understanding they obviously live with him and know him a hell of a lot better than I do. I get that. But he seems like a guy that struggles with his confidence sometimes. And he seems like a guy that if you put him at 9 and just tell him, field the ball, run like hell, and don't worry about the bat. Just be easy. It'll come. We know it will. And then when he gets on these heaters for a week or two, and can carry them, that's great. And you still have Whit Merrifield protecting him. If he's hitting 9th, then Merrifield is hitting behind him. So he's not going to get just a steady diet of sliders outside. So That's what I think they should do. I get what they're doing. They're trying to prop him up a little bit. If he's hitting third, that's lineup protection. He'll be in situations where they don't want to walk him, all those things. But it seems like they give him opportunities that his production doesn't merit. And with other guys, they need the production to merit before they give them the opportunities. It's a different way to handle him.
The other thing about him hitting third strikes me is that one of his obvious assets is his speed, and you lose a little bit of that when you're hitting third. The idea would be that Merrifield and Benintendi would be on, and now you're asking him to drive in runs and not be on base, not have the base paths cleared for him. But he by far kind of lapped the field in leading the league in stolen bases last year. Each of the last 2 years, I think, didn't he, Lynn? Anyway, he's been up there in stolen bases.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because his 2019 was shortened. I think he still did lead the league. I'm trying to remember how much of a gap he had, because remember he had the shoulder injury at the end of his season before the season ended, but I think he still did. I know he still ended up tied for the lead in triples with Dozier and Merrifield. So I think he did lead the league in steals. I just can't remember.
He had 43 in 102 games, which is a lot. Did not lead the league, but 43 in 102 games is.
It was the guys from Seattle catch him. Is that what I'm trying to?
It's not.
I thought Witt led back-to-back years. Or maybe that was just.
He led in hits. He led in hits back-to-back years.
Okay.
He had stolen bases 1 year.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Lynn, take us through. We know Brad Keller is going to start opening day on Thursday against the Rangers, and Mike Minor goes Saturday. And then Singer, is it Singer on Sunday?
Yeah, and then Duffy.
And as we went over last week, the Royals aren't going to need a fifth starter until mid-April. Has that cleared up any, or certainly they have time to consider this? But the fifth starter, I think, could be an interesting spot for the Royals, at least the way I look at it right now.
Well, if it's cleared up internally, they have not cleared it up externally for anybody. No, it's. I think there's still multiple guys that are in that conversation, as they like to say. I think Jake Junis is the way he pitched this spring has definitely put him back in that conversation. And I know people have heard me say this multiple times, but he's still in a year when pitching is such a big question mark. He's got more innings than anybody else the last couple of years, and people just want to dismiss that. But I mean, he's made more starts through more innings the last 3 years than anybody in that rotation. But he's looked really good. He had the cutter. And so he'll be in that discussion. You still have guys in the minors, whether that's Lynch, that's Bubic. So they'll be in that discussion as well. So they've got multiple options. I was thinking somebody else. I mean, Coar is another guy who I still don't think he's as far along as Lynch is, but so there's going to be multiple guys that they could go to on that spot, but they haven't really declared one way or another. And I think they want to see what it looks like over those first couple of weeks. I was wondering if, being in the bullpen, because that's where Junis and likely Irvin Santana, assuming he makes a club, will be, if that takes them out of the running for that. But, Matheny still sort of seemed to indicate that they're still going to stay stretched out. Even if they pitch out of the bullpen, there's going to be that chance where if there's a longer outing that they could still do that. I know Junis, his last Cactus League appearance was, I think, 2 innings, but they were going to have him throw a 4-inning outing as well, in the backfield just to keep him stretched out. So there's still a lot of balls up in the air on that.
Yeah, this Jake Junis spring has really opened some eyes. Has he developed the cutter, or is this a pitch is he just? It's
a new one this off season. It's a new pitch for him coming into this year, and it's and he's looked really good. I mean, that last outing against the Angels where they had Trout, Pujols, Rendon, all of them in there. I mean, he was mowing guys down. I think it was 2 innings. he was 6 up, 6 down. I think 3 strikeouts, I want to say. So I mean, he's looked good throughout.
It does. Can I say something real quick? Like, sometimes I can make fun of spring training production and statistics, and most of the time it deserves it. But I think that, like, when there's something, when a person has like fundamentally changed in a way, like Junis with that pitch, I mean, it's a different dude on the mound. I think like when there's sort of some context like that, I think it makes sense to put a little bit more credibility, however you want to say it, just a little bit more belief in those numbers and that production when there's something different going on like that.
I agree. Okay, all three of you guys are going to be out there at Kauffman on Thursday for opening day. Probably an unfair question, but I'll start with you, Vahe. What are you expecting to feel and sense and be part of? We know that fans are going to be there. Not 35,000 that we usually see on opening day, but 10,000. That's going to be the limit for home games at the K. But what do you think you're going to feel out there?
I think it will really feel special. You know, one thing I'm reminded of is when Sam went to a Sporting KC game last year, and it was the first game you could go to in person, or what the fans could go to in person, I think, Sam. And I remember it making you very emotional, and I expect to feel that way on Thursday. I think it's not going to be a typical opening day, of course, but it's going to be a lot more typical than last year. And I do think that the sound of 10,000 fans is going to be, it'll give us chills a little bit. I think it'll sound like 35,000. I could be gauging it wrong, but that's my anticipation. And I know just in some things I've kicked around with Sam and a little bit with Lynn, that we all feel that, right? And I mean, certain events, I think, stoke the sports writer, even the older jaded ones like Sam, to really anticipate the moment.
We think, Sam.
I mean, I would kind of echo everything that Vahe said. I mean, that Sporting Kansas City game, I felt like a fool. You know what I mean? Like I've got 2 kids and a mortgage, and I'm just sitting there like getting goosebumps, like from 2,500 people in the stands. But it was just it's that. And especially because we still had Chiefs games, but like it's just different. And there's something about that spontaneous reaction of thousands of strangers who came to one place to like experience. I get like literally I'm getting chills talking about that. Like they come to one place to experience the same thing because they have this shared joy, this shared interest, and from missing it for so long. I'm expecting to have like feelings that like a grown adult, in theory should be past. I think it's going to be great. And it's only amplified by, all that stuff last year, obviously, but it's only amplified by the team has, I mean, they're far from the favorites. They're in the wrong division. There's some loaded teams in the Central, but the team is a hell of a lot more interesting than it was last year, the year before, and the year before that. There's no question about that.
I've got to say, too, that unless I have missed my current events or recent history, the attendance at sporting events from the NFL and let's just say college basketball, and then into the NCAA tournament and others that we've covered or noticed, those haven't been. Fans have been responsible. They are wearing masks. They are sitting apart in pods. They're wearing masks when they're not eating or drinking. I haven't heard of any super spreader events from a sporting event. So I think that shows me how much fans want to be in the stadium or in the arena, and they want their sports. And so I trust that that'll continue to be the case, even as the vaccines are on the increase, but there's also a little bit of very recent history of numbers rising in COVID, maybe because of spring break. We all saw the images of the beaches in South Florida. So, but sports fans, by and large, have been pretty responsible from everything I gather. I don't know, but have you guys heard anything differently?
I agree with that, Blair, from what I've seen. And to my surprise, I might add, I remember being a bit skeptical when the Chiefs were opening it up. Just that, you think of all the loopholes, like you have to have the mask on at all times unless you're drinking. And what are people doing at Chiefs games? But I'm more and more persuaded that the outdoors element is a huge factor in this. But the other thing I do find myself wondering is, and I've heard no talk about this, as we go farther into approaching herd immunity and more people getting vaccinated, all these things, and wanting to open the doors more, and at some point in the future saying, okay, it's open to everyone. What is the element of the vaccine going to be in that? I mean, will we see something where you need to present your vaccine card? I'm probably exaggerating the point, but it is interesting to me. If you knew that everybody coming into the stadium was vaccinated, would you look at it differently? Would you open it up more? And it's really, again, I might have just not seen the data or the stories about it. I haven't really heard much discussion about that next step.
Lynn, you went to spring training games for a few weeks in Surprise with fans, right? The Royals had up to 2,500 per game in the whatever it is, 8,000 seat Surprise Stadium. Were they spread out, and how did it work there?
Yeah, they were there were small groups. They were spread out. I remember before the first home game at Surprise Stadium, watching them with one of those drone spraying seats, and then also seeing somebody walk around and literally or different people going around and literally wiping down every seat in the ballpark. But when the fans were there, they were spread out. They had masks on. It was funny because, as you were saying, you haven't seen anybody, not abiding by those. The first time that it jumped out at me was actually just a couple days ago out at the Salt River Fields. There was a loud group of young fellows in the upper deck who you could hear them all over the stadium. And at one point, because they were so loud, of course, they're drawing attention to themselves. And we looked over from the press box and we were like, nobody, we were like, you hate to say it, but like, they're having a great time. There's not a mask over there that I see right now. I mean, they had them. They just weren't wearing them. And you could tell they had been most likely partaking in some beverages. At least that's the assumption there. And that was the only one that I remember standing out, just because it was, the second to last day of spring training, and they were getting extra rowdy. And it was a group of them. And of course, that group was isolated from, sort of isolated from other groups. But for the most part, you haven't seen much of that. You've seen groups spread out. You've seen masks. Even at that ballpark, there was, the ushers were literally walking up and down the aisles with signs that reminded people, put your masks on, and pointing to individual people and telling them to put masks on. So I think that's, I don't envy that position this year, because I think that's going to be a lot of that, what's going to be going on in ballparks all over the country this year, is people being reminded and arguing with people about masks. But for the most part, I think it's been pretty good. It just happened that one example stood out because they were giving it to I'm trying to remember who it was, but I think multiple people from the Royals and from the Rockies heard about it.
Well, fingers crossed that we continue to practice safety and not have to, like college basketball season, lose games, right? And have delays like Baylor's basketball team lost 3 weeks of games. The Montreal Canadiens hockey teams lost 4 games because of the spread. So here's hoping that we don't see much of that at all during the baseball season. All right, I wanted to get your guys' 162 game projection for the Royals, but to put you in the mood for that, Beth is going to run a little a clip from the Royals, a little promo from the Royals. Beth, let's roll that thing and see if that doesn't get us fired up.
This isn't just any team. Young, hungry, powerful, fast. These are your Royals.
It's one high.
That ball's going to Mars. Look out, AL Central.
You just struck out 3 guys while we told you that.
These Royals are hard-throwing, bomb-hitting, base-stealing, gold-gloving baseball magicians.
What a play.
Especially him.
Undersea. How did he do that?
That was sleight of hand.
And now we have
These guys.
That is blast. My goodness.
welcome to our field of dreams.
These guys throw straight fire.
This dude might as well play with a gold glove. And this guy,
You already know.
It's going to be a base hit.
and don't worry, the fountains are still doing whatever awesomeness fountains do. So put those cutouts away, because baseball is back at the K.
Absolute cannon shot.
This is your team. These are your Kansas City Royals.
Put those cardboard cutouts away.
That's the best part, man. That that was good.
I like that. They did a good job. The Royals did a nice job with that.
I think they do a good job with a lot of that stuff. Really, it hits the right notes, the right chords.
the year before you got here, Vahe was Sam will remember the famous slogan. What was it? We've arrived. What was it?
Our time.
Our time.
Our time.
Our
Yeah,
time.
and I believe that was the year. At that point in history, covering baseball in Kansas City meant that that as soon as you heard the first boos on the home opener, you looked at the clock to see how long the game was, and it was 16 minutes. 16 minutes into the season, and people had already had it with our time. And also, notably, our time was such a disaster that baseball operations then got veto power over future marketing slogans.
It turns out.
Was that the game Luke Hochaber started and it just got blasted? Yeah.
The Royals did not. The Royals won. I forgot the exact date of the Royals' first win at home that year, but it was May something.
It turns out it was only our time to host the All-Star game that year. And that was it. However, the Royals end up with the best record, right, in the Cactus League this year. That's happened 3 other times. One of those years was 2003. The others were 2011 and 2013. And we know that 2003 and 2013 were the Royals turned winning records in those years. I don't know what the projections were for those teams, but 2 out of 3 years, with the previous years when the Royals had the best record in the Cactus League, they had they were above 500 in the final standing. So, is that going to happen this time? Let's start with Vahe. What do you think? 162 games. How many do they win, Vahe?
I think they're over 500. I think they're 84, 85 wins, somewhere in there. I will qualify this as saying I tend to be about 10 games over every year on my estimates. I've got the rose-colored glasses, not quite like the old Poznansky legend where didn't he write every year how they were going to win it all? But yeah. I only see the upside right now. I really do. I think it's an exciting lineup. I think the pitching has potential to be certainly stable, if not pretty decent. And that combination, I think, wins you more games than you lose.
The best part of those Poznansky, I mean, there was a lot of good ones, but one year, I forgot what year it was, but they had Sidney Ponson. You guys remember him? Yeah. And I should say, like, what was left of Sidney Ponson at that point. And I felt like everybody understood that if they got 40 innings from this guy, that's gold. And I remember those columns, it started with a scout with, like, how are the Royals going to win the division? And this guy was like, well, it's easy. First, Ponson's going to win 20. It was just that's where we're at. I think the Vegas number on them is 73.5. I believe that was the last I saw. I think that's a good number. I think it's a little bit low. I do. It is optimism season though, and I'm not as not quite Vahe, but I think they got a really good shot, like 76, 77, with a chance to improve on that. Like this game, this team, like you don't have to like imagine so much. You don't have to like create these scenarios. You can just say like Jorge Soler has literally led the league in home runs in the last full season that we had. Whit Merrifield has this skill set, Benintendi, like the pitching staff, all this, like it's all there. And I know I keep bringing it up, but the biggest reason for me to sort of maybe go down a little bit is that they have to play the White Sox all the time. They have to play the Twins all the time. The Indians are pretty good. I mean, it's a really rough division for them to sort of try to rise up.
Mark Schremer has him 10 games over, 86. That would be 86 and 76. That's optimistic. All right, bring some realism here to the conversation, Lynn.
Wah, wah.
Well, I mean, I think I might have to adjust a little bit just because, I saw a promo where a guy hit the ball to Mars and they got magicians. So I don't know how I can, downplay, you can't. I mean, a guy hit a ball to Mars. How you gonna you can't Debbie Downer on that. But I think, last year, well, I mean, in the last 2 full seasons we saw him were 100 loss seasons. Last year was probably a pace for about 70, 71 wins. So to get to 500 to me still seems like a big leap for 1 year, especially when there's going to be questions about pitching just because the difference between the seasons. And because you still are relying on some young guys like a Brady Singer and maybe Chris Bubich, and, you're still got some question marks there. And you may have a rookie playing on a regular basis in the outfield, as we talked about earlier. So there's still some things to at least question, to that give me a little hesitation to jump straight to 500, even though I think they're definitely going to be better. But also, like Sam's mentioned, the division is not cakewalk. So I think if I'm being optimistic, and I know they've set high goals, they're talking about playoffs, they're talking about, yesterday guys were talking about World Series. I guess I'm probably still landing somewhere in the neighborhood of, around 80 wins, I guess, being optimistic. And because I think there's going to be real improvement. I just feel like saying they're going to be 500 or above 500 is still a big leap based off of the last that we saw. And I think there has been a lot of improvement from the last we saw, but to just project and say, okay, they should be at least 500 and then anything falls below that means something went wrong, I think that's saying too much. So I think I'll land right around 80 wins.
Okay, and Mark Schremer wants to clarify, and that was my fault, Mark. He was saying that Vahe was probably about 10 games over on his projection, at least.
Which Vahe agrees with.
Right. Mark is closer to Sam's projection. I am too, and I'll tell you why. A couple things. Starting pitching has to develop. You just don't know. You don't know who to trust yet in the rotation. So I'm a little skeptical there. And the Royals' recent habit of April baseball has just been so discouraging. I remember before the World Series teams, right? The only thing you look forward to with the Royals was the promotion nights. When were they giving away the bobbleheads? Whose jersey whose T-shirt was being offered up that night? The playoff teams changed all that, but then they fell back into that nasty habit in 18 and 19 and didn't get off to a good start at all last year in the abbreviated season. So just, don't be buried by the end of April. Show some progress and some signs of life in the cold weather months. And maybe this year a hot September means meaningful baseball in September for the Royals. That is my wish for this team. But I'll say 75 wins for the Royals this year, which is progress. Look, under Ned Yost, what was the thought? They improved their
every year.
7 straight years, I think it was. It set a major league record of improving in 7 straight years. So this would be a 3rd straight year, if they, at least from a winning percentage basis, if they could get to a victory total in the mid-70s. So, okay, guys, great conversation. I really enjoyed it. You guys have fun on opening day on Thursday. Want to again thank the University of Kansas Health System as our sponsor. Great to have them on board. And a reminder to your viewers, we're going to come at you on Tuesdays, 10 a.m. every week, as long as Lynn and Vahe and Sam can fit into their busy schedule. So, for Beth Welsh, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday.